Dan Lee. I am a creative professional. I started my own company at the start of this year, and uh, I do a lot of just creative things. So I'm going to go into my ideas, which will all have kind of that creative bent to them. So without further ado, number one, all leadership calls for creativity. Leadership is an art. You're conjuring direction for people, and you're using a symphony or a canvas of systems, artifacts, and humans. So I believe any leader should fully avail themselves of the disciplines and the lessons that apply to more traditionally creative disciplines. You don't get to say, I don't think, I'm not creative just because you don't draw or write poetry or play the flute. I think if you're responsible for making leadership happen, you are responsible for practicing a certain inescapable degree of creativity, which is both freeing, I'm sure, as well as daunting. The second point I have is 5-year plans are nice, 5-year principles are better. I find that this mindset helps me to live in the moment and adapt better to the wide, unpredictable world full of storms and accidents and pandemics. I prefer to analyze my path according to a few key guiding lights and convictions, instead of judging where I am today based on what I thought I knew about the world 5 years ago. I know some leadership roles likely require explicit statements at times to say this is where we're headed, but I think by and large, there's a lot of room for the humility that comes with accepting that life is just going to do its own thing. Number three, your job is not to take advice, but to synthesize it. I am a big believer that you should not just pick things up wholesale from the next person who approaches you with really strong convictions about how you should do your job. I think the principle or intent of advice is better of a takeaway than taking someone's prescribed solution as is. I believe that the job of knowing who to trust and how much is the leader's job. The onus is on you to do the filtering of many strong voices, and there will be many. Point number four, flirt with your ideas, date your strategies, and marry your mission. That's pretty self-explanatory. But new ideas are pretty and exciting, but the vast majority of ideas, by nature of being ideas, are ultimately wrong. So be ruthless with culling your drafts. When you create a strategy, commit to going steady with it for a few years to actually let it accomplish its purpose. I think you see a lot of people start or mistake the strategy for an idea, date the strategy when you've got a bunch of people now heading in a certain direction. Not great to switch it up quite as quickly. And then finally, that third category, as soon as you're clear on a mission, stick with it through sickness and health, for better or for worse. Number five, some of the most important work you'll ever do is what you do while doubtful, scared, or unmotivated. I found that how you feel about your work is rarely, if ever, the most important determinant of its value. It's very easy to get worried or get into your own head about things that can end up being the most transformative in your life. So do it anyway. I think this is as true of business and leadership as it is of other realms, like practicing an instrument or exercising at the gym, especially exercising at the gym. Number six, conflict is inevitable, animosity is not. We have to practice how to disagree and either compromise or hold our convictions and hold the line without the undue sacrifice of human relationships or feeling deep personal resentment in the process. Conflict is frequently and most often a healthy thing, but we get the choice to turn it into something worse. And I'm reminded of the book, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. I'm not going to steal Patrick's thunder, but he says the second mark of a dysfunctional team is a fear of conflict. Highly recommend reading what he has to say about that because I found it to be very true. Point number seven, make yourself listen to the same truths over and over again, which is also point number eight, make yourself listen to the same truths over and over again. That was a joke. We are nothing if not stubborn. We see this very clearly in other people, and it's also just as true of ourselves. Sometimes it's literally the 12th time hearing it. when truth finally chips its way through. So highly advocate, get used to reminding yourself of the true things. Actual number 8, not everyone who leads well has a leadership title. Evidence of strong leadership exists at every level of our, frankly, arbitrary hierarchies. So I would encourage you to search out, observe, learn from, and spotlight anyone who makes that clear. And avoid the reverse fallacy of assuming that everyone with an illustrious title has the quality to back it up. Follow the evidence. Number 9, the best way to get started is any way that gets you started. This is something that I've really had to live into again with starting my company at the beginning of the year and figuring it out along the way, which I'm happy to report has worked out quite well. This is not to advocate recklessness, however, but it does advocate a certain dose of audacity to press the go button before having airtight certainty, which I think is absolutely critical for leadership, especially for leaders who are seeking to bring something new to the table. Preparation is part of the process, but over preparation will serve nobody but your most fearful self. And finally, number 10, nobody is going to give you permission to change the world. If you're going to try to create something truly different, kind of good and bad news, there's nobody in charge of the Department of New Ways to check in with. Find that when we go for it, the world will follow. And that's all I got, you guys. Thanks so much.
Hi. As you said, Wanda Kerns. I'm with Expressions Art Gallery and Framing. This is one of those moments where I'm pushing myself into do something new. Yeah. My experience comes from my whole career. I feel like everything we've done always builds into what we're doing now. And I originally was in management in restaurants, and then I worked at a huge facility and I helped supervise hundreds. So all of that plays into the last 8.5 years now that been a business owner, and I love it. And it's the ultimate challenge. And so hopefully my tidbits are helpful for both big and small, depending on what you need to hear. And thanks for having me, Sheridan Press. These are principles that we go by, and you can ask any one of my staff. They're simple, but they're ones that everyone knows in my business and that we live by. And the first one is be a good steward of everything we touch. So if it comes into our building or across our work table, even if it doesn't end up being a project we take on, we make sure it leaves in better shape than it came in, whether that's cleaning the glass or replacing hardware or giving them advice on how to handle it in the future. Art gallery and framing, revamping on iterating. So a lot of the projects that come in are in need of framing or old. So that's why that. But at the end of the day, we're all proud of what we've accomplished and what we do because we know it left better than it came to us. And that makes the customers feel good, makes my staff feel good. Lift other businesses up. This is also something there's an opportunity to do every day. Every day we've built up trust with our customers, and they come to us and they ask us, we're going to go to lunch. What do you recommend? Or people who've just moved here and they had broken glass, say in their projects, they're like, I need an oil change. Who do I go to? Or there's a ton of ways we can lift each other up. And by doing business with each other locally, we have experience and we can tell them from our experience and keep things positive. Another way we do it is we get coupons from the businesses we go to, and then we turn around and give them to our customers, like Sisterhood Sanctuary. It doesn't have to be relevant to our business. And we've done it for restaurants and, oh, gosh, new businesses coming in. And that's kind of a neat customer service point because they trust, they build up trust with us. And then also they sometimes come in and leave with something they didn't expect, like a flower from Albertsons, or we call it Friday Flower Day. It's just a pick me up, makes everybody smile thing. My number 3 is for major decisions. This one comes from my history, but also I incorporate it now as a business owner. And it's don't make a major decision on the same day and make sure everybody knows that you won't. And then make sure you have time to visit with all the people that it impacts the most, and invite conflict, ask for their feedback, positive and negative, and really be open to it, because you might be able to head off a lot of problems ahead of time just by hearing those. And the other end of that, after you've listened to them, they realize you're talking to all the parties that are involved, is ask for their support. That's the key. That's what's different about this process, is you have gone through the effort of listening to it, and now you tell them that you ask for their support, because you'll have the whole picture. And ultimately, no matter which way you decide, it's not going to work if they don't get on board and try to help make it work. And I really liked the strategy for a while analysis. Same thing. You have to give it an honest shot, or it isn't going to work. People can sabotage it, and it always makes them feel better to feel included. And then the last part of that is always sleep on it and pray on it. Last thing before any big decisions. Then there's the learning journey. That's my number 4. That's how, if you've ever started a new job and you get into it and you get taught how to do things, and then you run across a question that wasn't in the how-tos and you don't know where to go or what to do. And it's like, do I just guess? So to avoid mistakes and guessing, a learning journey means that you take time during the training process to create a binder, say if you're a big facility of departments, and who's who and why, and not the how. And you make time for them to go around and visit with those people in person and get to know what they do. Even if it doesn't have any impact on their job, they'll understand the workings of your whole business. And if they have a bigger picture of how things run, they'll do a better job for you. It also creates a relationship between them and others. So when they have questions, they feel more approachable. And they don't have so much anxiety about going to ask that question, and they actually know who to go ask. So it's a really helpful process. In a small business, like if we only have 3 to 5 people, what that looks like is we do shadowing. So they'll shadow for a couple of days, say with my gentleman that cuts and joins frames. They may never end up using a saw, but the fact that they understand how much goes into it and all the detail work and how hard he works on it helps them be able to explain to customers the time frame it takes to make a frame. It's all ties together. Number 5 is opportunities. So I see every challenge and every roadblock as an opportunity. So my staff and my customers all heard me say it's a blessing in disguise, or Bob Ross quote that we have all the time is happy accidents. And a lot of times they turn out to improve the quality. We end up, say we have a paper mat in a rush order that we have to recut last minute, and we turn it into a fabric mat. It turns out a better product. And there's no blame and no shaming of each other when mistakes happen, because they happen. And no one intends to, and they're not going to do it again. So all we do is we all just jump in and work on resolving the issue and team up on it, and it's a better feeling. We've improved because of that every day. I've seen tons of growth. Every 6 months, our business seems like it's grown and changed a ton from addressing everything positively. I believe in individual growth, and that it's a mindset. And if you go into the same workshop that you've been to 15 times with the mindset that you're not going to learn anything new, you're not going to. It's a bad word in my book, the word can't. I didn't even let my daughter say can't. Because if you say you can't, you can't. It's true. I believe that if you go into it with an open mind, it's always different people involved, different questions. You're in a different state. You might be more clear of mind than you were the last time, or your experience plays into it and you have more experience this time, so you'll hear it differently. And I also, along with the knowledge thing, is I read in a book a while back and it really resonated with me, is to learn for 10 minutes every day. And if you do that in your field, eventually you'll be one of the best. And I do it for hours every day. And then I turn around and I regurgitate it to my staff to the point that they'll tolerate. And I try to keep it in their interest. And there's really interesting things out there. Like at one point in America, paper was made because of supply and demand from the wrappings of mummies from Egypt. And yeah, who doesn't want to know that? Anyways, it helps better our staff. We're constantly developing, constantly growing. And of course, our quality is constantly getting better because of it. So personal development also affects everything about your business. Public stuff. So customers, we treat all of our customers like family and friends. And what that looks like is taking time to hear what they need and listening to them. And we have an opportunity. Everything they bring us is about a joy in their life or a sorrow. And we take it seriously that we're involved in part of that. They're part of their life. And so we try to do the best job we can and not rush them. And in return, they'll come back and they'll tell us how their surgery went or how the funeral went or if their kid won the game. And it's just kind of a neat relationship we built. And so I don't rush my customers or my staff when they're dealing with people because we don't see them as dollars. We see them as friends. The previous owner of the Sheridan Inn gave me advice once, number 8, to give myself grace as a business owner. And I really needed to hear that. It was a wonderful piece of feedback because I was trying for perfection and wanted everything to be already in place. And he said, give yourself grace because, and what that ended up looking like for me was forgiving myself when I was going through learning curves and giving myself confidence in the decision that I'm doing the best I can at the moment with all the information I have and the experience and instinct, and I can always adjust and overcome later. So that was a big one for me. Culture. If you've been to our gallery, you've heard us call it the happy place, and we really live that. And what that looks like for my team is anyone who works for me knows that personal time or sick time is really irrelevant. It's all about supporting them if they have anything personal in life that jumps up, college tests or family issues or personal health. They take the time they need, and everyone else on my team steps up and helps where the gap is. And then when they know that's what we're doing, so they hurry back. And then when one of us has an issue, they step up. And I've had several times where people came in on their days off because we had a lot of orders due and they were just ready to make sure it got done. So it's a great atmosphere. And because of our atmosphere being happy, we have neighbors who come over and just recharge in the gallery and reset before they do something difficult or after. And it's our happy place. Culture. And then wonderful synergy is my last, number 10. And synergy is where we all work together and create something better than any one of us would have done individually. And it's such a great feeling. It's one of my favorite moments as an employer when we have a product that we've created or we've rearranged the gallery in a way that is so ideal, and it couldn't have been any better if any one of us wasn't there to help with it. So that's all I have to say. And the other one of my favorite parts is we inspire people. Thank you for having me, and I hope.
I live here in Sheridan. I'm an entrepreneur. I have focus in the green industry. I like saying that in Wyoming because most of the time if I go to Colorado, Montana, people think I own pot shops. I do not. I have founded 11 companies. I have sold 3 for profit. I currently own 3 solely and the partnered in principal of 2. Most recent business founded and sold was Tree Mechanics. That company was acquired by Savatree this spring. Currently, my focus is helping grow Savatree in the West. Savatree is about a $500 million tree and lawn company. And our goal as a principal is taking that public in 2026. Actually, Savatree would be the first publicly traded tree and lawn company in the world, if that's to go. So that's pretty exciting. Yeah. That is a brief backstory. I'd love to go farther with everybody in this room at some point. What has worked for me in guiding large teams to wins? Number 1 is don't be lazy. I see so many leaders who are pushing from the back and not leading from the front. Doesn't matter your age. Once you hit a certain level within your career, I really notice that you're sitting behind a desk, you're sitting behind a computer more. Number 2 would be passion. Why are you doing what you're doing, and why would you expect others to follow? If you are not passionate about what you are doing on the day-to-day, how can you expect to sell? How can you expect others to follow you? Number 3 would be personal development. We all have 24 hours in the day, and how you use them is what sets people apart. Early mornings and early nights work best for me. I know that there is a prime hour that one person wakes up in the morning. My wife's prime hour is 4:30. If I wake up at 4:30, I am dragging. My prime hour is like 5 to 5:30. And then again, how you set your mornings up is going to how you set your business up for success and your team. If you're waking up 15 minutes before your alarm clock and you're late getting into the office, you're late getting into your safety meeting, your team sees that and they're going to lead by example. It's important to find your morning routine and in your time. Number 4 would be communication. Utilize the technology at hand. Being that it's 2024, I do not feel that there's any excuse for lack of communication. It's so easy to pull your phone out, use Siri, send an email, send a text message in a split second. Number 5, the attitudes. They are 100% contagious. How you greet your team in the morning, how you greet customers in the morning is how you set the energy for the room and for your environment. Number 6, mission statement. Let it be known everywhere in your organization. No one can read your mind. Be clear and precise with the vision. I am at fault for this 100%. I expect everybody within my organization to understand what I'm thinking, when I'm thinking it, and where the end goal is. And at the end of the day, that is never the case. We need to always communicate a little bit more. Number 7, transparency. Be an open book with your team. It goes very far for them to see the risk and reward of leadership. Calculated risk. The formula for success, in my opinion, is understanding your market, the competition, services, and your overhead. Strategize growth and expansion based off of these. Number 9 would be flexibility. Everything can change in an instant. Ensure that you know the emotional state that you are in and how you're going to handle that and how you're projecting. If you're not in the right emotional state to handle that situation, there is no wrong with saying, hey, give me a minute. And you separate yourself from that and you move on about it. Come back in when you're focused. Number 10, the health. Your health is number 1 and you are number 1. Leading people takes a lot of your energy and it induces a lot of stress. Make your health priority first and foremost over profit. Number 11. Yeah. This worked out perfect. It comes like he was like, you got 12. I was like, I actually do have 12. Yeah. Nice. This is definitely my favorite. Be a problem solver. I do feel like that's what a leader is. You are 100% a problem solver, day in and day out. 90% of people, in my opinion, lack this. It doesn't matter what you are doing and where you are, the ability to solve a problem like that is lacking within our world this day and age. Doesn't matter whether you're young in the workforce or old. That's what I feel. Educate yourself. There are thousands of books out there. Read more of them. And lastly, trust your gut. We all have the feelings that we do for a reason. Call it the Holy Spirit, whatever you may. But we have that for a reason and go with it. I appreciate you guys having me up here. I'm always here to help you guys, entrepreneurs, move forward in our community because that's what we are, tight-knit community.
Thank you, everybody. And just to echo what all the other speakers have said, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I find that being in the leadership position at D.A. Davidson, I'm still pretty new, so I'm here to learn as much as I am to share. So just a little quick backstory. I do work at D.A. Davidson company. We opened a branch 26 years ago. We have 2 practices in the branch, Susie Garber Johnson, for those of you who may have heard, and then my team, both investment partners, which you see in the brochure there. But D.A. Davidson related, we're a regional brokerage firm based out of Great Falls. So very large company, nationwide, if you will. But specifically here in Sheridan, we've ranged between 6 to 8 people. So oftentimes when I speak to leadership, I manage a small team, very interesting team dynamics, things like that, critical, those types of aspects. So with that said, kind of launching into it, number 1, point, I'd say blending multiple perspectives into one vision. And early in my career, I had a hard time really grasping the concept of a mission and a vision. By nature, I'm a taskmaster. I can be really happy or very irritable at the end of the day, depending on my to-do list, if it shrunk or grew. The concept of vision and mission was just a distraction. I didn't really understand what that meant. But now when you find yourself in a leadership position and you're helping other folks really bond, you're helping them answer questions about the direction of the group. Those types of things can often tie back to a very well-constructed group-derived mission and vision and all those concepts. And now we do try to put a ton of time into that and make sure it's not mothball. There's a lot of great folks in our community that can help you write those, draft those, get that participation from your team that you need, and truly make them come to life, make it tangible. And I know that the young version of me, that would have been hard to do, but it really can be helpful. Secondly, kind of in that intangible world, but building trust throughout the team or organization, vertically, horizontally, in the whole 9 yards. I do find that as I problem solve with my team and resolve conflicts at times, a lot of times it really boils back to trust or lack thereof. People don't really trust one another. They start to go outside their scope of work, or they, start to just kind of sabotage the situation, don't really find the most healthy output, ways to really put forth their effort and energy. And I keep coming back to that answer a lot, that they just really don't trust one another professionally. And if you can get to the bottom of that and help them work through those aspects and truly kind of find that common ground that allows them to, and I'm a big sports guy, so I'm not bashful to say that. If you look at a lot of productive teams out there, they don't necessarily have to go out and socialize after their work is over, but in the workplace, they trust one another to get their respective job done. They know what their role and responsibility is. They trust that the others will get that done. And it's a well-oiled machine. Oftentimes, a component of that is your mutual trust. Inspiring your team or organization. Number 3, inspiring your team and organization by sharing your passion or the passion of others. Or I would pose the question, who's your energizer? Oftentimes it should be you as a leader, particularly those who are newer in the leadership position. Your organization is newer, but as you age, as you mature, as you kind of work through your respective journey, make sure you always have an energizer or energizers to lead it. We know that the daily grind of all that we do, as much as we love to do it can be a grind sometimes. And finding the folks that can really bring that juice, bring that energy, help the group kind of get through a tough spot. I would argue Monday morning from about 8 to 10 is our toughest spot of the week. Anybody else have that problem? Weekends are lovely, and Monday morning is just a brick wall. So who's your energizer on Monday morning, right? Brings the focus back to work. Who makes it fun? Who outcomes the goals? Who kind of leaves that group? Leaves the morning rally or however it is you start your day or start your week. Who helps that organization really kind of hit the ground running? And if we find a weak spot or a soft spot, hard spot, compliance issues, regulatory aspects, the weight of all the respective things within your respective industries that you feel, who can help energize the group to really bring you through that? If you don't have that, they'll sniff that out pretty fast, right? We all know our employees anymore, our staff, our team, everybody has their own vision of you, their own understanding of who you are as a leader, who the organization is, and where it's headed. And they'll sniff it out pretty fast if you're not passionate about what you do. I would argue we've been much like maybe most of you have experienced here in Sheridan. We've had a lot of turnover the last couple of years, so we've definitely been through the hiring process, had employees depart, go back through that hiring process. And I keep coming back to one of the key things I'm going to look for is who's passionate about the financial planning industry. Who really, who wants to put in that extra time, and it doesn't feel like extra time to them if they truly are passionate. If it becomes a work or a job, it's going to be harder. And I think that applies to most of us in the room and most all businesses. Common aspect too, number 4, set goals and track your results. I think we all talked about that, that, but folks at, high performing teams, good leaders, have a very efficient process there. They have that ability to really, find the metrics within your respective universe that are impactful. In our world, it's how many households do we serve? how many assets under management do we have? What's our average revenue per household? Is our business growing or shrinking? What are those metrics? Bring that down. We can often see those, say, on an annual basis, but how do you get that into a month-over-month basis, quarter-over-quarter? What can I do today to impact those numbers? And keep those numbers fresh. Keep them in front of you. We try to bake those into definitely a monthly meeting where we pull out our goal sheet, see how we're tracking relative to those. Quarterly, we like to get out of the office, take a peek at all of that. Tie it back in again, another thing to not let mothball, and measurable, right? I mean, we've all probably heard the acronym SMART goals or whatever kind of spin you prefer to put on that. But I think it really boils back to that they're measurable, they're specific, and they truly are impactful within your industry. And I like to use the word dashboard, but what does our dashboard look like? 2 or 3 kind of key metrics. Keep your eye on those 2 or 3 key metrics. What can I do today to impact those? And it'll help keep you navigating in the right direction. It's already been said, but I would echo it. Number 5, promoting healthy conflict. If everybody is just a yes man or woman, it's not going to be very, very productive at the end of the day. You would love to incorporate diversity, really embrace that. Have people, even within our group of 6 to 8, we try to make sure we have as much diversity as we can, age, gender, backgrounds, people from within the industry, people from outside the industry, people that have moved to Sheridan recently, people that have been born and raised here. We want to hear everybody's perspective because it's unique and different. And then, of course, with that comes the challenge of blending all of that. Careful what you wish for. And so that diversity that we all strive for can be a challenge to kind of keep them all pointing in the same direction. But through that, letting them talk that out, have frequent meetings. And again, I would go back to, we've got wonderful people within the community that can help you facilitate those conversations. If you have something that's brewing that is getting very, very heavy in conflict, you may want to get outside help. But if you can address certainly healthy conflict, direction of the team, shouldn't we incorporate a new service? Do we want to eliminate a service that we currently do that somebody's really, it's their sacred cow, but everybody else in the group feels like we need to depart and move forward? How do we handle that? How do we make sure everybody's committed to the, what might not be unanimous, but is the consensus decision moving forward? And healthy conflict can truly be a source of growth for your team. Number 6, engage each individual so they understand their role clearly and see their own unique future within the team construct. I would say this takes as much or more energy than just about anything else I do. Again, I have a small team, so I do spend a lot of time trying to make sure I have a lot of one-on-one conversations with everybody. It's always, I think we may take it for granted. You have your vision. Garrett said it earlier. You know what you want to accomplish. You think you've said it 18 times, and then you'll ask somebody a question and you'll realize they still haven't quite heard it yet. And they don't know how they fit. And so that can lead to a stray, employee that's gone rogue on you for a while. So making sure you have those frequent conversations, they can be pretty repetitive maybe from you, but for them, it's helping them really see the ice cream truck in the same way you do. Many of you probably were out Sheridan College years ago hearing that concept, but the idea of, ice cream truck rolls into your neighborhood, sells some ice cream to some local kids, ice cream truck leaves, asks all the people in the neighborhood to describe the ice cream truck. It's amazing how everybody sees it differently, right? So same thing applies, in work. We can have a 10-minute meeting, talk about what we're going to accomplish that day, circle back to somebody about 2 hours later and ask them what they heard. It's unique. It's interesting. How did they hear it that way? Why did they hear it that way? What was their takeaway? You may have some aha moments that helps kind of bring that, brings that ice cream truck to everybody's vision. And so they can really see what it is they're doing in that moment, that day, that week, etc. And to it, I would say, as you work through that, you have your team vision, and then you have each of their individual roles. What are they? How do they get to where they need to be? In that realm, number 7, and this is something I just learned, this acronym, but give spot feedback. I think a lot of it is intuitive, but just the acronym, I think, rang true for me. That is, the S being specific in time and behavior, P, the possible impact of that behavior, O, the opportunity for improvement, and T, timely. again, I would, echo that we do have a young team. We've had turnover. So spot feedback may happen 3 or 4 times a day. You have to have your energy up. You have to look for those opportunities. And what I mean by that is truly and timely. If you see something happen, interaction with a client, it kind of goes sideways. You watch the employee do their best, but there's opportunity for some constructive feedback 30 minutes later and have that quick 5-minute meeting. So this is what I observed. This is kind of how it went down, in my opinion. I want to hear yours. This is the impact of that. Here's how we could have done it differently. Here's what I perceive the impact of what you did. Here's what I would have preferred the impact to have been if you had done it this other way. So the timely aspect of it can be, certainly strenuous on leaders. And I think with a young team, you've got to put a lot of energy into it. Hopefully as they mature and develop and grow, you can put a little less time into it. But it is well worth your time. Number 8, we, again, relatively new, but I've moved away from, in terms of like individual employee, we call them appraisals rather than evaluations, but individual appraisals with my folks. We all have a scale, 1 to 5, 1 to 3, or what have you. I now use terminology like basic training, advanced training, working independently, and flourishing in your role. And where are you on that spectrum? And we can move along that spectrum at our own pace a little bit. As a leader, you may have to put a little pressure on folks to speed up a little bit on that progression. But with that said, most of us start our job needing that basic training. What do I have to do to turn the lights on? Where's the coffee? How does this office really function? What do I have to do to get from 8 o'clock till 5 o'clock in the day? How can I be helpful to the team? I'm here to learn. Okay? That may take, depending on whatever your industry is. For us, I'd say it's about 6 months. It takes a good 6 months for them to really have their basic training down. Davidson, of course, as a firm, provides a lot of training. We in the branch provide a lot of training as well. But with that, after about 6 months, hopefully they've made it through kind of the basic training. They could be left alone. They can kind of get done what they need to do. But I would argue at that point, those one-offs, they don't understand yet. And that's where we move into the realm of the more advanced training. They can handle all the one-offs as well. They can do their core competency things, but then they've also developed the skills. The thing that they only see once every 2 years shows up this week. Can they handle that? Can they address that? Do they have the skills to do that? In our case, again, I would say it takes maybe another 6 months to a year before I would say that I expect most of my team to have worked through that advanced training aspect. Okay. And then once they kind of get to that space and they're starting to progress to the third point, they're starting to work independently. If I could track my employees through the hallway, how many times are they making a beeline back to some senior person to ask them a question, right? I need a little help on this, or I'm a little stuck on this aspect. Well, when does that track start to stop? When do they start to just work independently in their own space? When does that start to reverse? When do other people start to make a beeline to their office, asking them questions, trying to understand and trying to get unstuck themselves? It doesn't happen overnight. You can really mark time with it. My hope is that probably after about 2 years, they're really working independently. They're able to do that. And then by that point in their career, they're starting to progress to the fourth and final, which is just truly flourishing in their role, where they hopefully are a rock star. You'd love to have all your employees reach that point in their journey, and you have a staff of 8 that are all flourishing in their role. So I like those concepts better. I think it kind of takes a little of that pressure off at relative measure and just turns it back to the individual and gives them hopefully the empowerment to move through that spectrum. 9 would be assessing your team's organization's performance objectively. So we as leaders, we have to be honest. Are we getting our butt kicked right now, or are we winning? What's going on right now? And you can't be the true cheerleader, rah rah all the time. You've got to be honest. Again, I would tell you, I think most of our employees would call BS pretty fast if they really sense that they're being sold a bill of goods. So sometimes you have to be honest. Hey, we're losing right now. This was not a good week for us. Here's the reasons why I see that. We had a tough quarter. We're seeing our competitors or the industry or other things are kind of happening, and we didn't do so well. What do we have to do to kind of get moving back in the right direction? And then same thing on the other side, of course, encourage people. We had a great week. This was a good day. Everybody needs that, affirmation that things are going well, but not at the individual level, certainly at the team level. And last, I would say walk the walk. Again, with all that said, it's your actions that speak louder than your words. I think we all know that. I think that too could be a progression over time as you develop in your own journey as a leader. If you grow a little tired and you're just kind of expecting the group to lead themselves, they'll sniff that out too. So walk the walk. The things you ask them to do, you better be doing yourself. If you aren't, again, they'll figure that out pretty fast. And I would tell you that's when your group probably begins to break down. But if you're truly walking the walk and doing all those things, much like being a good father, good husband, coach for your respective youth teams, or whatever that leadership role may take you into besides just in the workplace, it's important to really walk that walk and lead by example.
Sheridan College for 8 years as the Vice President of Student Affairs and the Executive Director of the Sheridan College Foundation. I also have a podcast that I have to plug with Sheridan Media, so Godspeed Wyoming. So if you guys want to pop onto there, check out the podcast. But with that being said, because I work for the foundation, we tell stories. We are storytellers. And if you know me, I'm a storyteller. So mine is not necessarily going to be fully bullet points. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a very profound leadership story that really set my path kind of into leadership moving forward. So when I was 30 years old, I had this amazing opportunity to meet this really great leader by the name of Darby Brockett. I have a bachelor's in social work. He had a bachelor's in social work, and he was starting physical rehabilitation hospitals for people with disabilities just like myself. And I had went to a physical rehabilitation hospital, and the idea of being a leader within one and helping to start this new company was just amazing to me. So he put me through as a chief operating officer with the CEO and training program at the age of 30. He had so much faith in me, which I'll always be thankful. But he was so authentic, which I found was so inspiring. He would come in from Austin, Texas. He'd fly in and he had his cowboy boots, his jeans, a Hawaiian shirt, and be like, "Hey, kiddo, what does that look like?" And that was just amazing to me. And he helped me to learn to be just my real, true, authentic self. So after spending some time with him, I was transferred to run my first hospital in Prescott, Arizona. So I was single at the time. It was me and my dog, Maya, a little border collie. And here we are in my big red car on our way to Prescott, Arizona. And it was an amazing experience. I felt very great about my leadership style. And then being able to learn from Mr. Brockett was just amazing. The one thing that I felt like I was lacking was really that work-life balance, which I still, for many of you that might know me, still kind of struggle with that a little bit, but I wanted to prove so much that I could be a leader, especially at the age, a disabled female. I mean, I felt like there were so many things that I had to prove. So I worked a lot. And so I go home, and Maya's a border collie, so she doesn't listen very well. She has her own thing. So I got really, really close to a director that reported up to me. And I found myself just spending a lot of time with her. And we really maybe crossed that balance of boss and friend. Sometimes you could kind of get in those situations. I was at her house a lot. And I think for me, it really filled that for me, maybe that loneliness that I was going through. Unfortunately, after my first year, we were going through a mock survey for our Joint Commission certification. And she had come to me and she said, "Hey, just want to let you know," she's in charge of compliance for employee files, those type of things, kind of behind on that. And I'm thinking, "Oh, that's okay. Thanks for being honest with me." Corporate comes in, we're really behind at a level that we're falling outside of compliance. So corporate decides no longer able to be an employee with us. And unfortunately for me, I'm the one that has to have that communication. And not only am I terminating an employee, that's really hard, I'm terminating a friend. So when you kind of cross that boundaries, what does that kind of look like? And so I thought a lot that night about what does that look like, and just always leaning into grace, respect, integrity, and having that conversation the best that I can, which was as successful as it could possibly be that very next day, sitting with her, having those hard conversations, and just doing it in the best that I can do. And I know when she walked out of my office, she actually hugged me, which you think, oh gosh, I was kind of hoping she would just be mad at me, because I think it's harder when somebody thanks you. You're thinking, really, you're going to thank me? But at the end, that was the best conversation that could have ultimately happened. I remember closing my door and going behind my desk and just crying. Like, it hurt so bad. Like, and I'm thinking, I don't think I'm made out for leadership. Like, I have to make these hard decisions. And then I have a knock on my door, and it's my administrative assistant. And she said, Darby, the original guy from Texas with the boots, is on the phone for you. And I'm thinking, oh man, he's hired me to make these big decisions. Stop crying, pull it together. And I drank some water. I said, okay, like, Darby's on the phone. I'm, hello. The best calm that I could be, hello. And then he said, hey, how you doing, kiddo? And his best, Austin twang. But it was so much compassion. I just started to cry. So I know I'm not supposed to cry, but this hurts so bad. What does this look like? And he would tell me two very profound things that I will never forget years later now. First, he let me have my moment and my meltdown. And then he said, kid, when it stops hurting, you should get out of leadership. He said, this shows that you have compassion, and the best leaders have the most compassion. And so he said, yeah, when this doesn't hurt anymore and you don't have any emotion, get out. And I thought, okay, that's like, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be me. And then the next thing really resonated with me is he said, also, kid, you have to realize that sometimes it's lonely on the top and you have to be able to set boundaries. And lonely at the top is really, really hard for somebody like me. I'm the little kid that was in the grocery store line talking to everybody and embarrassing my parents. They're like, could you please stop talking to everybody? Or during COVID, I hated being isolated. Like, I need people. And I like being around a lot of people. And so the thought of being lonely on top, and he said, focus on setting those boundaries. That, okay, what does that look like? So I went home and I said, okay, I'm just going to be hard. Like, I'm just going to be solid. I'm going to get several black suits. I don't know why I thought black suits were really, really important, but I had one. So the next day I pull out the black suit and I'm like, that's just it. I'm going to go in and I'm going to be hardcore. Well, it didn't last very long, because I had an employee that was on maternity leave that had come down the hall. Here I am holding a baby. Her toddler is full of chocolate all over my black suit. And I thought, okay, like, obviously being hard and wearing black suits is just not, I'm holding babies and loving kids. That's just who I am. So over the next years, I am big about journaling and I am big about writing things down. So for me, I was truly starting to learn from great leaders about how to set boundaries. And it really started for me with a work-life balance. I was just really, really tied into work 100% and really finding what I enjoyed outside of that. So I'm not great about going bullet point by bullet point, but just a few things from this story that I'm sharing with you that I would encourage all leaders or anyone in any role is to be your true authentic self. Just be who you are and find out what you need to do related to that. And that's what's truly going to work for you. You can't be somebody that you're not. And then identify those boundaries around that, whether you write them down. My boundaries have changed throughout all of these years. Now I'm married and now I have a 10-year-old. And so boundaries look very different, more around social media, leaving on time, making sure that I'm very present. What does that look like? Kind of some of the next points is, again, going back when you have to have those difficult conversations, being present, showing grace, watching your tone. I don't know if many of you are familiar with Brene Brown, but she talks a lot about just being vulnerable and kind, and then just remembering people are people, and so she says, and she goes to speak, or when she goes to do things, she says, people, people, people. We're all human and we all make mistakes and we're all vulnerable, just people. And so a lot of times when I go in to have those hard conversations or any type of things, I just remember people, people, people. We're all human at the end of the day. The next kind of 3 points in leadership, it's really helped me with the balance of being able to love and engage with my staff and show them I care, but not hanging out with them, all the time, that balance of what that looks like. But for me, it's really being visible within the workplace. So I feel like it's really important not just to be sitting behind your desk, to be able to make rounds, truly listen, engage. If you're asking, how is somebody really doing? Not saying, okay, thank you, great, thank you, bye. We can always engage tell when somebody's not engaging. And for those of you that also know me or work with me, I have some people in here that work with me. You'll hear several times, I am not really into texting and emailing. I'm still very old fashioned. I feel like text, email, all of that is for general communication. Like we have to meet at this time, but to have those really hard conversations, it's still so important to call somebody and talk. And I really challenge my team. If I see an email with several paragraphs long, it's going to stop. And the open communication is going to start to happen. And so, right, Amy? It happens. Not that Amy ever does that, but she hears me say these type of things all the time. And then, number 9, I just talk about trust. I always flip a lot of when it comes to trust. I've always heard for a long time that trust is earned. Trust is earned. And I've always really struggled with that. And so the way that I looked at trust is with my staff, I trust you until you give me a reason not to. And so I kind of flipped that. And so, I've told this story about this staff member before, and people said, well, you've been burned before. Like, how can you just go 100% in and trust people? Well, for me, that's what I would want from my employer, that they would trust my integrity. They would trust me initially until I gave them a reason not to. So that's related to trust. And then L, I just love to, when I look at the word leadership, there's always these really strong words like lead and, all those type of things. And for me, when I see leadership, I feel like the L in leadership stands for love. And I think we should be vulnerable enough to say, that's okay. Like it's okay to love people and it's okay to have compassion for them. So I'm going to leave you with love and lead with love.